In the middle of the South China Sea lies Scarborough Shoal, a tiny reef barely visible on most maps, yet enormous in its power to stir nations. Here, fishermen cast their nets for survival, while superpowers cast barriers and claims for dominance. Ironically, a place meant for life and livelihood has become a chessboard where laws bend. Alliances are tested, and the sea itself seems to pick sides. One nation says it's defending sovereignty, another insists it's protecting peace. And in between, the world watches, waiting to see which will prove stronger, the rule of law or the law of power. It started with a line, not drawn on a map, but floating in the water, a chain of buoys and ropes, sealing off Scarborough Shoal, cutting off Filipino fishermen from their own sea. Just 120 nautical miles from Luzon, the shoal isn't merely a reef, it's a lifeline. It's where fishermen from Zambales and Pangasinan have cast their nets for generations. But now, satellites reveal something new. A Chinese barrier across the lagoon's entrance, transforming this peaceful coral atoll into a symbol of defiance. For China, it's a safety measure. For the Philippines, it's a direct challenge. A blockade inside its own exclusive economic zone. This is how control looks in the modern age. No cannon fire, no invasion, just barriers, Coast Guard ships, and a steady rewriting of reality, one buoy at a time. Even after the 2016 Hague ruling that struck down China's so-called 9-dash line and affirmed Manila's rights, Beijing has doubled down, brushing off international law as if it were little more than ocean spray. By 2025, the tension had boiled over. Chinese vessels clashed in dangerous proximity to Philippine patrols. Beijing declared parts of the shoal a national nature reserve, claiming environmental protection, but Manila saw it for what it was: a legal smokescreen, a new way to fence off the sea. Scarborough Shoal is more than a reef. It's a crossroads of strategy and identity. To the locals, it's food, work, and home. To military planners, it's a gateway, sitting astride some of the world's busiest trade routes, where trillions of dollars in goods pass every year. To world powers, it's a test of resolve, a measure of who sets the rules in the Indo-Pacific. Since the 2012 standoff, China's ships have patrolled the shoal relentlessly. Yet the Philippines, armed with law and determination, refuses to back down. As one Filipino fisherman put it, "Hayaan niyo kaming mangisda sa sarili naming dagat. Let us fish in our own sea." On October 8, 2025, the truth didn't come from a press conference. It came from space. High-resolution satellite images showed a massive new blockade stretching across the shoal's lagoon. It's a pattern the world now recognizes. Deploy when convenient, remove when criticized, repeat. Analysts call it Grayzone warfare, actions just aggressive enough to intimidate, but not enough to trigger open war. For Filipinos, it's a punch to the gut. For Washington, a warning flare over the Pacific. Legally, the Philippines stands on solid ground. The 2016 Hague Tribunal ruled that Scarborough Shoal sits well within the Philippine EEZ, giving Manila exclusive rights to its fish, resources, and waters. Under international law, no foreign power has the right to block, occupy, or restrict those waters. Yet Beijing calls the ruling null and void. It clings to historic rights, claims that no court has ever recognized. In this clash, the question cuts deeper than any border. Does the rule of law still matter in the modern world, or do power and proximity decide who owns the sea? The standoff reached a breaking point in August 2025. A Philippine supply mission near Scarborough was intercepted by a Chinese destroyer and Coast Guard cutter. In the chaos, the two Chinese vessels collided, steel against steel, while the Filipino ship barely escaped. Days later, Beijing escalated again, declaring Scarborough Shoal a national nature reserve. To Manila, that was no act of conservation. It was a strategic trap, a new way to enforce control under the guise of environmental protection. Outrage erupted. The Philippine government filed a formal protest, and President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made his stance unmistakable. "We will never surrender even 1 square inch of our territory." Those words echoed far beyond Manila, reaching Washington, Tokyo, and every capital watching the South China Sea. Today, the Scarborough Shoal stands as a test of courage, of alliances, of the global order itself. Each buoy dropped into the water, each ship patrolling the reef, tightens the line between restraint and confrontation. For China, the barrier is defensive. For the Philippines, it's a blockade. For the world, it's a warning, because if a nation can fence off the sea today, what happens tomorrow? Scarborough Shoal is no longer just a cluster of coral. It's a mirror reflecting the future of the oceans and the fragile peace that floats upon them. In China's official narrative, the story sounds simple. The shoal isn't closed to Filipinos, they say. It's merely protected from intruders. But beneath that calm language lies a sharper truth and a dangerous question. When does defense become coercion? And when does a response to provocation become the provocation itself? What's unfolding at Scarborough Shoal is no longer a local dispute between Manila and Beijing. It's become a global test, a measure of American credibility and of whether international law still holds any weight on the open sea. At the center of it all stands a decades-old promise. The 1951 US-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty, a pact that binds both nations to defend each other if one is attacked. Now, that treaty, once a quiet document buried in archives, has become a live wire. Every move near Scarborough Shoal raises the same uneasy question. If Beijing crosses the line, will Washington step in? For the United States, this isn't just about protecting an ally, it's about protecting the rules, ensuring that might doesn't make right on the world's oceans. Washington has drawn its warning clearly. An armed attack on Philippine ships, aircraft, or government vessels in the South China Sea will trigger the treaty. That message is meant to keep Beijing's moves just shy of open warfare. But here's the challenge. How do you stop aggression that's designed to look like not quite war? This is what strategists call Grayzone warfare, actions that live between peace and conflict, between diplomacy and domination. No gunfire, no invasions, just pressure, presence, and persistence. Across the world, historians draw parallels to Russia's slow-motion takeover of Crimea, where maps changed not with bombs, but with facts on the ground. China, they say, is doing the same at sea. Each buoy, each patrol, each blockade, small on its own, slowly reshapes the boundaries of reality. Territory is taken without invasion. Sovereignty erodes without war. And international rules bend for those powerful enough to ignore them. That's why the world is paying attention. From Tokyo to Canberra, from NATO headquarters to Brussels, diplomats are sounding the alarm. Because if the rules collapse at Scarborough Shoal, no small nation's sovereignty in Asia, Europe, or anywhere is truly safe. A line in the sea could become a line in history. Will laws and alliances still matter? Or will power alone decide who owns the ocean? To understand China's moves, experts say you can't just look at a single incident. You have to see the pattern, one quiet maneuver after another, each one slightly shifting the status quo. In testimony before the US Senate, maritime security analyst Ray Powell put it bluntly: China is winning without fighting, using non-military coercion to change realities at sea, one step at a time. It's a strategy built not on explosions, but on patience. And every small, gray zone victory brings the world one step closer to a future where maps are rewritten without a single shot fired. Maritime strategist Ray Powell puts it plainly: China has mastered the art of taking control one small step at a time. Floating barriers here, Coast Guard ships there, swarming fishing militias, nature reserve declarations, and quiet legal maneuvers. Each move looks minor, even temporary, but together they slowly squeeze the space where other nations can exercise their rights. Analysts call it a campaign of facts on the water. Create a new reality first, then defend it later as if it had always been there. The pattern stretches far beyond Scarborough Shoal. At Whitsun Reef, hundreds of Chinese vessels dropped anchor in formation, claiming to shelter from storms, but signaling something much clearer: presence. At Second Thomas Shoal, Chinese Coast Guard ships blasted Filipino resupply boats with water cannons and blocked their path. It's the same choreography over and over: close access, normalize control, deny that anything changed. No missiles, no invasions, just quiet, relentless pressure enforced by ships, paperwork, and propaganda. Security experts call it both the genius and the danger of Beijing's maritime strategy. It sidesteps outright war, yet chips away at Philippine sovereignty little by little, like waves grinding down stone. By the time the world takes notice, China has already moved on to its next step. The floating barricade at Scarborough isn't an isolated stunt. It's the latest act in a long, calculated campaign to dominate the West Philippine Sea without firing a single shot. Now the crisis sits at a crossroads. The choices made by Manila and Beijing in the coming months could decide whether this sea drifts toward confrontation or steers toward fragile diplomacy. Most analysts believe China's trajectory is already set. Expect more barriers, more Coast Guard and militia patrols, and an expansion of those so-called nature reserves, turning control into something that looks permanent, even lawful. The tactic, wrap coercion in the language of protection, claim stewardship while tightening control. Day by day, patrol by patrol, buoy by buoy. If unchallenged, Scarborough could quietly evolve into another fortified outpost, a silent stronghold in China's growing maritime web. For the Philippines, the path forward is narrow, but not impossible. Manila continues to file diplomatic protests, anchored by the 2016 Hague ruling, which reaffirmed its legal rights under UNCLOS. At the same time, it's deepening ties with the United States, Japan, and regional allies, building a counterweight to China's pressure through joint patrols and shared intelligence. But every move comes with risk. Assert too little and sovereignty erodes. Push too hard and one misstep could spiral into conflict. Scarborough has become more than a reef. It's now a symbolic battleground for the entire Indo-Pacific. The questions echo far beyond the South China Sea. Can smaller coastal nations still defend their sovereign rights against a great power's creeping expansion? Or will might, not law, decide who owns the sea? If the answer is no, the precedent will ripple across the globe from Asia to Europe, wherever force threatens to overrule law. But if the answer is yes, Scarborough could one day stand as proof that persistence, partnerships, and principle can still hold back even the strongest tide. For now, the world watches, holding its breath between escalation and diplomacy. The floating barricade at Scarborough Shoal is more than rope and buoys drifting on salt water. It's a symbol of sovereignty under siege, of national pride under pressure, and of the fragile limits of international law. Each cable stretched across that lagoon tightens an invisible rope around the rules-based order that has governed the seas for decades. Each satellite photo, each maritime standoff adds another chapter in a slow, silent struggle for control of the Indo-Pacific. Scarborough Shoal is where a small nation defends its right to fish in its own waters, and where a superpower quietly redraws the map, one wave at a time. It's also where the United States and the international community must confront their own question. How far are they willing to go to protect the principles they claim to stand for? Freedom of navigation, respect for international law, and the defense of smaller states from coercion. What hangs in the balance is far greater than one shoal. This standoff could define the next chapter of US-China-Philippine relations, and with it, the future of maritime order in the 21st century. Will the seas of tomorrow be ruled by law, or by the largest fleet? For now, a single floating barrier drifts on the waves, a quiet warning, a test of resolve, and a question the world has yet to answer. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world.